Wealth is not an external pursuit. It is not a prize waiting at the end of endless effort. It is an invisible pulse, vibrating quietly beneath the surface of your being. You were born within this pulse. Before you took your first breath, circulation was already the law of your life. Blood moved through your veins. Air entered and left your lungs. Energy flowed through the earth beneath you. From the beginning, you were never separate from abundance. The illusion of scarcity came later, taught by fear, shaped by repetition, accepted as truth. Yet beneath every anxiety about survival, beneath every calculation of gain and loss, something constant remains, a rhythm that does not depend on markets, on luck, or on effort. It is the same rhythm that makes rivers flow, that keeps planets in motion, that draws the tide to the shore. That rhythm is prosperity itself. When you look at the natural world, you see no sense of strain in the act of thriving. The trees do not chase the sunday. They grow because light already belongs to them. The ocean does not hoard its waves. It releases and receives in perfect trust. The flower opens because it is inevitable for it to bloom. There is no greed in nature and no fear of lack. The only place where these illusions exist is in the human mind, a mind that has forgotten its connection to the universal pulse. You have been told that wealth is the result of control, of strategy, of competition, but control is the language of fear. True prosperity begins not with possession, but with alignment. The moment you stop forcing the current and begin to move with it, life begins to support you. This is not poetry, it is law. The universe is not withholding from you. It is responding to the image you hold within. When you think of yourself as small, unworthy, or struggling against circumstance, you shrink the channel through which abundance can flow. You build walls of anxiety around the river of your own life. And then you wonder why the current feels weak. But when you begin to understand that wealth is consciousness, not currency, the river starts to move again. It moves through your thoughts, through your emotions, through every act of giving and receiving. It circulates as naturally as blood. The great masters of the mind understood this long before modern science discovered that thought affects matter. Joseph Murphy called it the law of belief. Whatever you impress upon your subconscious, it expresses. The mind is not passive. It creates according to the dominant vibration you sustain. If you constantly dwell on the idea that there is not enough, your life will reflect it in perfect accuracy. If you fill your thoughts with faith in circulation and expansion and divine sufficiency, your experience will expand to match. Think of your subconscious as fertile soil. Every belief you repeat is a seed. Scarcity is a seed. Abundance is a seed. The soil does not argue. It simply produces. What you harvest tomorrow is what you plant today in silence. This is why two people can live in the same world, one surrounded by opportunities and another trapped in limitation. They do not live in different realities, they live under different inner laws. You may ask why, if this truth is simple, so many still struggle. It is because most people try to think abundance while feeling lack. They use affirmations as decoration, not as embodiment. Words alone cannot deceive the subconscious. It listens to emotion, not intellect. If your heart still beats with fear, your words have no roots. But when the emotion of trust begins to rise, when gratitude replaces tension, the entire vibration changes. Life begins to mirror that trust back to you. Wealth is not accumulation, it is movement. The more freely energy flows through you, the more alive you become. The miser who hoards is poor because his current has stopped. The generous soul who gives with faith is rich because nothing blocks the stream. The act of receiving is the same as the act of giving. Both are expressions of the same pulse, the inhale and the exhale of creation. Look at your own life. Every breath you take is evidence of divine abundance. You receive air without effort. You do not beg the universe for your next inhalation. You trust that it will come. This is how prosperity works. When you align with that trust, you stop clutching and start circulating. Fear says hold, faith says flow. Wealth is not an accident that happens to the lucky few. It is the result of resonance. Prosperity gravitates to those who vibrate in harmony with it. You cannot attract what you secretly condemn. If you believe money is evil or corrupting, you will unconsciously reject it. If you see it as energy that nourishes, that sustains, that circulates like blood through humanity, you will allow it to flow freely through your hands. You will understand that to give is to maintain the rhythm of life. There is a reason every sacred text equates blessing with multiplication. What you bless expands, what you curse contracts. Gratitude is not mere courtesy, it is the magnet of increase. When you silently bless what you have, you signal to life that you are ready for more. When you complain, you tell the universe you cannot handle the next wave. The law is impersonal. It always obeys your dominant state. Begin to observe the patterns of your mind. Notice how often you tense when thinking about money, how quickly you slip into comparison or fear. Every contraction you feel is a small dam in the river. Do not fight it. Simply breathe and allow it to dissolve. Tell yourself quietly, I am part of the circulation of life. Everything flows through me in perfect order. When you stop struggling for wealth and begin to embody wealth, the transformation is subtle but absolute. You notice synchronicities, opportunities that appear where before there was resistance. People begin to respond differently to you because your energy has changed. You are no longer begging life for abundance, you are expressing it. The pulse of prosperity is never distant. It beats now, in this moment, in the quiet rhythm of your own heart. Feel it. Each beat is a declaration that life continues, that energy renews, that circulation never ends. You are that circulation. You are the expression of the infinite seeking to know itself through abundance. Do not ask when prosperity will come. It is already here, waiting for permission to move. Give it that permission by trusting the flow. Every act of generosity, every moment of gratitude, every thought of sufficiency opens another channel. The more you open, the more you receive, and the more you receive, the more you are able to give. The circle completes itself. Remember this truth. Everything that circulates lives, everything that stagnates dies. Life itself is circulation. You are not separate from it. You are its living proof. When your thoughts flow without fear, your world follows. When your emotions flow without resentment, your relationships prosper. When your giving flows without calculation, your finances heal. The same law governs all. Prosperity is not a pursuit. It is a pulse. It beats quietly behind every breath, every act, every thought. When you begin to listen to that pulse, when you trust its rhythm more than the noise of fear, you rediscover the original law of existence. Abundance is not achieved. It is remembered. In the stillness beneath your worries, beneath every number and every deadline, a deeper truth waits. You are already connected to the infinite circulation of life. You always have been. The task is not to create prosperity, but to stop resisting it. Release the tension, breathe, and allow the pulse to move through you again. That is where true wealth begins. There is an endless current moving within you. It is not loud, it does not need to be seen, yet it governs every breath, every thought, every moment of your existence. That current is life itself, the intelligence of the universe, expressing through you. Everything you call prosperity or success is simply the form that current chooses to appear in. It is not you who must seek it, it is always seeking to flow through you. But have you ever wondered why at times you feel a pause, as if the source of life within you has been blocked? Why are there days when everything feels motionless, when faith fades, and life closes in on itself? Joseph Murphy called this a dissonance with the rhythm of the universe. When the mind no longer moves in harmony with the pulse of creation, all things begin to dry out. Yet when faith is rekindled, when you return to the knowing that all goodness is not something given, but something awakened, everything begins to realign. Wealth, health, and love are not prizes. They are simply pathways through which the energy of life seeks expression. When you fear, the channel narrows. When you trust, it becomes infinite. The universe operates through rhythm. You inhale, you exhale, day arrives, night departs, spring returns, then leaves again. No rhythm ever stops. No pause is without meaning. Prosperity is no different. It is not static. It is the rhythm of circulation. When you receive, when you give thanks, when you trust, you are keeping time with life itself. When you fear, when you cling, when you resent, you slow your own rhythm. Can you feel it, the sensation in your chest when you try to hold everything for yourself, when you fear losing, when you hesitate to release? That heaviness is the blockage of spirit. Every cell in you was created to circulate, not to store. Life has already taught this truth. Through your body, blood must flow, the heart must beat, the breath must move in and out. When any part stops, life weakens. When you stop believing, you do the same to your soul. Murphy said that faith is not a vague wish, but a state of consciousness that knows with certainty what it seeks is already present, just as the heart knows blood will return, just as the lungs know the next breath will come. It needs no proof, only rhythm. When you live in that faith, the universe begins to respond at the same frequency. Everything moves upon the same invisible current. And perhaps right now you can feel it within your own body. When you release your shoulders, when you exhale softly, you can sense the energy beginning to move again. No effort needed, only permission. The less you resist, the more natural the flow becomes. Like water, when unblocked, it finds its way with ease. Faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. When you believe, you create the space for goodness to appear. When you doubt, you close that door. Prosperity is not a reward for the more deserving. It is the result of those who open at the right moment. Those who understand this law never ask when abundance will arrive. They only ask how to keep faith flowing within them. Ask yourself now, in silence, do you truly believe that life is on your side? Do you believe that what you seek is not out there but beating in rhythm with your own heart? The question needs no answer, only a feeling. For if you can feel it, you are already within it. Prosperity is faith made into heartbeat. Each time you think in terms of possibility instead of limitation, you strengthen the current. Each time you give thanks, you expand the frequency of receiving. Each time you give, you open another path for energy to return. There are no real limits except the ones the mind creates. When you understand this, wealth is no longer a destination, it is the natural state of consciousness. Perhaps you have seen it in small moments, when you helped someone and felt lighter instead of afraid of losing, when you trusted without reason, when you smiled at something that had not yet happened, and then watched it unfold. That is the current moving through you. No calculation, no strategy, only allowance. Feel for a moment the life within you now, the warmth of your hands, the beat in your chest, the steady rhythm of your breath. All of it is proof that the universe is tirelessly working to keep you within its flow. There is no real separation. You and the source of life are one. When you remember this, fear loses its ground and prosperity begins to circulate once more. Thank you for listening, not only with your ears, but with your presence. Thank you for taking a moment within your own rhythm to touch the greater rhythm of life. That gratitude, even as a single thought, is enough to rekindle the current of the universe within you. And once it begins, nothing can stop it. Every river begins at a source, not the place with the most water, but the place that dares to flow first. The same is true for human beings. Prosperity does not arise from where there is much to hold, but from where there is courage to open. When the mind closes, the current of life cannot find its path. It does not disappear. It only compresses, waiting for the moment when consciousness becomes still enough to let it move again. People often believe they must search for new energy, but no, you only need to unlock what has already been sealed. Fear, envy, resentment, all are stones blocking the water. When the soul is cleansed, the river within finds its natural direction once more. Joseph Murphy said that our thoughts are the veins of the spirit. They carry energy through the body, shaping emotions, and even influencing the environment around us. Every thought is a command to the subconscious, and the subconscious never refuses. It does not operate by morality, but by belief. If you believe in lack, it will preserve it as truth. If you believe in abundance, it will nurture that faith until it blooms. The mind is the soil, emotions are the water that nourishes the seed. What grows depends on the seeds you choose to keep each day. When you complain, you water the seed of scarcity. When you give thanks, you nurture the seed of prosperity. This law never fails, because it is not built upon will or ethics, but upon energy. Thought is like electricity. It travels where there is connection. If you connect with worry, you will receive more reasons to worry. If you connect with faith, the universe responds with opportunities that match your vibration. There are people who live their whole lives inside a loop of fear and effort. They work hard, yet their flow is weak, because deep down they do not believe they deserve abundance. Fear contracts the mind, and energy cannot circulate in a narrow space. But when faith is restored, the current finds its way out. Everything begins to respond differently, not because the world has changed, but because you have tuned yourself to its rhythm. What stops the flow is never circumstance, it is always the inner state. A person can live in material lack yet feel abundant, because they are aligned with the rhythm of life. Another can have plenty and still feel empty, because they resist the natural flow. Prosperity is not measured by what you own, but by the freedom within your heart. The less you resist, the more easily you live in the circulation of the universe. Murphy once wrote that positive thoughts are not strong enough when they are rooted in doubt. The subconscious only understands the language of emotion, not the logic of reason. When you say, "I believe I will be fine," but your heart still fears, you send two opposing signals. The universe does not know which to follow, so it waits. But when word and heart unite, the current begins instantly. Not because of magic, but because the energy is no longer divided. Remember that water does not need to try to flow. It only needs to be released from the ice. The same is true for human beings. You do not need to struggle to be prosperous. You need to melt the thoughts that freeze life. Each time you forgive, you melt a piece of that ice. Each time you give thanks, you widen the river within. Forgiveness is not a moral duty, it is the way to keep your flow unpolluted. No one is worth your hatred more than your own energy being blocked. Prosperity, in its essence, is the cleanliness of energy. When your mind is clear, the current is visible. When it is clouded, everything around you reflects the same. Observe not with the eyes, but with awareness. When you act from the right energy, results come lightly. When you act from fear, everything becomes heavy, even when you do the same thing. The universe does not respond to action, it responds to state. Many ask how to create a prosperous flow. The answer lies not in doing more, but in doing less of what obstructs. Less judgment, less fear, less resistance. When you stop creating waves within yourself, the surface becomes still and the sky reflects clearly. That is when you see the true direction. Every thought leaves a trace of energy. A pure thought has more influence than 1,000 tired actions. Because when energy flows freely, every action becomes precise and effortless. That is why those who understand this law are called the ones who flow. They do not run faster than others, they simply know when to let go and when to steer. In the material world, we are fascinated by the appearance of success, but the soul only cares about the state of the flow. When it runs freely, you feel peace, even before achieving anything tangible. That is the sign of true prosperity. Inner stillness is always the evidence of a strong current. To keep the river within you flowing, you need nothing from outside. You only need to stop throwing more stones into it. Do not control. Do not judge. Do not doubt for too long. Everything you seek is already trying to flow toward you, only waiting for you to stop resisting. When you learn to let go, you lose nothing. You only allow everything to return to its natural order. And that is the moment when life and prosperity begin to move once more. There comes a moment in life when a person realizes they can no longer live the way they used to, not because the world demands it, but because a voice within becomes too clear to ignore. It is the moment when you stop seeking safety and start seeking truth. And that truth is always simpler than you think. You do not need to become someone else. You only need to stop believing that you are missing something. Every transformation begins not when you try harder, but when you finally stop and look inward. From that stillness, a new current begins to flow. Joseph Murphy called this the awakening of the subconscious, the moment when the mind stops controlling and begins remembering. Everything you need has always been there, like a seed sleeping beneath the soil, waiting for your awareness to become still enough to notice it. When you begin to trust the power within, you stop begging the world to provide and instead allow your own energy to lead the way. Change is not a miracle. It is a return to the natural rhythm of your soul. Many spend their lives trying to change their circumstances without realizing that the root is not in action but in belief. If deep within you still carry the thought that you are not enough, then no matter how much effort you make, the current will remain blocked. But when you begin to view life through the lens of abundance, everything starts to shift. Opportunities appear, people appear, and even you begin to open, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed frequency. Think about this. If a river believes it is small, it will creep timidly between rocks, afraid of every obstacle. But if it knows its nature is water, flexible, powerful, unstoppable, it will find its way to the ocean. You are the same. Everything you seek is not in becoming different, but in remembering who you already are. The subconscious works like fertile soil. It does not judge which seed is good or bad. It simply nourishes what you plant. If you sow thoughts of limitation, the soil will bring them to life. If you sow faith, freedom, and gratitude, it will make them grow as well. The life you live today is only the harvest of what you have silently planted long ago. But the beauty is, you can always plant anew. Have you noticed how life mirrors you like a reflection? When you doubt, the world seems to close. When you open your heart, everything becomes lighter. When you believe, the flow begins again. There is no punishment, only the natural response of energy. What you send out always returns, perhaps not in the form you expect, but always carrying the lesson your soul needs. So do not ask when the world will change. Ask yourself when you will be ready to change how you see the world. For when the inside changes, the outside follows. When you begin to love yourself, others begin to treat you with kindness. When you are grateful for the small things, you start to see how much you are already given. When you release fear, life brings what once seemed impossible. And now, I want to ask you something. In this very moment, as you hear these words, are you truly ready to change? Not to become someone else, but to return to the flow that has always been within you. If your answer is yes, write in the comments, I am ready to change, or simply type the number 1. Let me know that you are here, that you are listening not only with your ears, but with your soul. Because the miracle does not happen when you hear something inspiring. It happens when you affirm to yourself that you are ready. The moment you write those words, you are not leaving a mark on a screen. You are creating a shift in your subconscious. It is your declaration to the universe that you have opened the door. And when you open, everything good finds its way to you faster than you can imagine. Change is not something to do. It is something that naturally unfolds when you remember your true nature. You were not born to live in fear, but to expand. Not to seek life, but to feel it. Everything you need for the next chapter is already within you. The only thing missing is a decision. Notice your breath once more. Nothing forced, just in and out, effortlessly. Life works the same way. It does not ask you to struggle, only not to hold the breath too long. Inhale new beliefs, exhale old limits. It is the simplest and deepest form of transformation. Thank you for being here, for listening with your heart, for being present. Each time you pause like this, you realign your rhythm with the rhythm of the universe. That flow has always been there, waiting for you to remember it. And remember this, every great change begins with a single thought and a gentle affirmation, I am ready. There is a silent yet absolute law of the universe. Everything that lives must circulate. Blood through the body, breath through the lungs, water through the river, energy through consciousness, all exist because they move. When a current is blocked, life begins to weaken. Prosperity follows the same law. It is not a static object, not something you own or keep, but a living flow of energy between you and the world. Once you understand this, You stop seeing money as a thing and begin to see it as an expression of life. It comes, it goes, and through that movement it keeps existence alive. Joseph Murphy once said that money is the blood of material life. It is not cold or lifeless, but a current of energy carrying the consciousness of its user. When you use money in fear, you make that energy heavy and slow. When you use it with gratitude, it flows lightly, opening new paths ahead. Every financial crisis begins in an invisible place, the mind. When thought becomes blocked, life mirrors it through circumstance. Fear of loss, envy, resentment, these are the blood clots of the spirit. Gratitude, faith, and generosity, these are the clear arteries. When you find yourself struggling, do not look first at numbers or events, but at the inner flow. What are you afraid of? What are you holding too tightly? What are you resisting? Every blockage in life has its root in the mind. Murphy often used the image of the farmer sowing seeds. When he plants them, he does not feel loss. He knows that the seed must leave his hand and disappear from sight before the harvest can come. If he clings to the seed out of fear, the season will pass him by. The same is true for money, energy, and love. Whatever is held too tightly stops breathing. Whatever is released in faith returns multiplied. When you spend and feel pain, pause and notice it. That feeling is not a failure. It is a signal that fear has taken control. That fear is the wall between you and prosperity. But when you replace fear with gratitude, gratitude for being able to pay, gratitude that energy still moves through you, you will see money return faster, lighter, more naturally. True wealth always begins with trust in circulation. Life does not want you to hold on. It wants you to let it pass through. When you give in the right spirit, not out of fear of loss, but out of knowing that this is how energy continues, you align yourself with the law of the universe. When you stop the flow through fear, you disconnect from the source of life. The truth is, no one is truly poor. There are only those who have not learned to let energy move freely. This circulation is not only material, but emotional, mental, and spiritual. When you stop sharing, when you close your heart, you stop the flow. And then, no matter how much you have, emptiness remains. A truly rich person is not one who has much, but one whose energy nourishes others. The worlds inside and outside of you always reflect each other. If you want more prosperity outside, open your heart inside. If you want your money to flow, let your emotions move freely. Forgive, give thanks, share. These are spiritual acts that unclog the arteries of the soul. When you do, energy begins to move again, and change appears effortlessly. Imagine your body as a network of golden rivers. Each positive thought is a clear stream. Each fearful thought is a stagnant pool. When you shift your thinking, you not only change the color of the water, but the direction of its flow. And as that happens, life around you begins to change too. There are no limits to the energy of the universe, only limits within the human mind. When you realize this, you stop asking how to get more and start asking how to allow more to flow through you. That question is the doorway to freedom. Every form of lack is temporary because the river of the universe never runs dry. It only waits for you to open the gate. And when you do, not only money or material things come, but a deep sense of peace, the quiet knowing that you are exactly where you belong, moving with the rhythm of life, no longer trying to survive, but allowing life to breathe through you. That is the true meaning of prosperity. Joy is the purest form of energy the universe has given to humankind. It does not come from the outside, nor is it the result of success or luck, but a natural state that arises when the soul no longer resists the flow of life. When people lose their joy, it is not because life has become harder, but because they have forgotten how to breathe in rhythm with the universe. A joyful heart is one that circulates freely. It opens, receives, gives, and through that movement keeps the energy of prosperity alive. Joseph Murphy once said that a joyful heart is a wealthy heart, for it carries the highest vibration of creation. When joy is present, everything begins to bloom, just as the sun makes sunflowers turn to its light. When the soul grows heavy with sadness, worry, or resentment, the inner energy thickens and slows. These are the clouds that hide the light of wisdom. They not only dry the spirit, but also block the flow of abundance. You cannot attract goodness while carrying the energy of fear, for the universe does not respond to your words, it responds to your vibration. The sad cannot see opportunity, just as closed eyes cannot see the dawn. Joy is not a result, it is the cause. When you are joyful, everything begins to align. You speak with kindness, you look at others with softness, and these small gestures open great doors for good energy to enter. The universe recognizes joy as a signal of harmony. When you vibrate in joy, you are saying to existence, I am ready to receive, and the world, true to its nature, begins to respond. Joy needs no reason. This is what the mind struggles to accept, for it believes something external must justify happiness. But the truth is, when you allow yourself to be joyful without a reason, you are most free. Joy is not built on condition, it is built on choice. The one who chooses joy amid challenge is the one who has learned to master their energy. When you smile, even slightly, your energy changes instantly. Thousands of cells respond to that vibration. The body releases chemicals of relaxation, and the mind opens to new possibilities. When you are sad, energy contracts. When you are joyful, it expands. And where there is expansion, there is flow. Prosperity cannot live in a closed space. It needs expansion, just as the lungs need air and the heart needs rhythm. Look around. Nature is never solemn. Streams laugh as they run. Wind hums through the leaves. Everything moves in quiet celebration. Life, at its essence, is joy. Humans only lose it when they separate themselves from that truth, when they believe life is a burden to bear instead of a melody to dance with. Murphy once told the story of a woman who lost all faith after tragedy. Everything around her seemed to collapse. One day she heard a voice in her mind, simple yet powerful. Smile, even without reason. She began doing it each morning, awkwardly, without emotion, but consistently. After a week, she felt lighter. After 2, she laughed for real. From there, everything began to change. The people around her shifted. New work appeared, and life returned. Not through miracle, but because her energy changed. A smile is a silent affirmation that says, I trust life. When you trust, the universe trusts with you. Just as blood circulates through the body, joy is the oxygen of the soul. Without it, everything may seem to function, yet it slowly weakens. A heart that does not know joy grows stiff. A mind that cannot laugh grows tired. But when you nurture joy, everything in you begins to revive. Watch a child at play and you will see life in its purest form. No calculation, no purpose, only the joy of being. In that moment, the child is neither rich nor poor, neither anxious nor afraid. It simply lives, and that is why it is whole. When you return to that state, even for a few minutes each day, you open the door for abundance to enter. Joy does not have to be grand. It can be a quiet breath, a warm glance, a whispered thank you in your mind. But these small gestures hold great transformative power. Because the universe does not measure action, it measures vibration. When you keep your energy clear, light, and joyful, everything you touch aligns with that same frequency. This is why those with joyful hearts attract good things effortlessly. They are streams, not wells. They give and receive in the same rhythm, without force, without expectation. And because their waters are always moving with joy, they never run dry. A joyful heart is the sign of a healthy soul. Joy does not come from what you have, but from how you perceive what unfolds around you. When you understand that life is always working for you and not against you, joy becomes as natural as breathing. Joseph Murphy once said that joy is not merely an emotion, but a spiritual force capable of renewing the entire flow of energy within a person. When you are joyful, every cell in your body feels refreshed. And when the heart is joyful, prosperity begins to circulate. Life cannot flow through a closed soul. Just as a river cannot move if its waters are frozen, energy cannot circulate within someone burdened by sorrow and fear. Many believe they need money, success, or love to be happy, yet they forget that joy itself is the source of all these things. The sorrowful shrink the world around them, while the joyful expand it. When your vibration is light, every door opens. When you are heavy, even standing before opportunity, you cannot step through. Prosperity is not merely about having more. It is about the movement of life's energy through gratitude and joy. A man once came to Murphy, saying he worked endlessly, yet remained poor, exhausted, and unchanged. Murphy asked him only one question: "Do you still feel joy in what you do?" The man was silent, then admitted that he acted only out of fear, fear of poverty, of loss, of falling behind. Murphy replied, "When action is driven by fear, it cannot produce prosperity. When it is sustained by joy, it naturally creates a current of abundance. Begin," he said, "by finding joy in the smallest things, for that is the signal to the subconscious that you are ready to receive. Joy needs no reason, but it must always be chosen. People often wait for a reason before allowing themselves happiness, and so they live their lives in delay. But when you smile without reason, when you feel gratitude even while life is imperfect, you are telling the universe, 'I choose to align with life.' And the universe, as honest as a mirror, reflects exactly that. When joy is sustained, it becomes an inner state, and from that the entire material world begins to shift. The joyful are not joyful because they have because they are joyful. Look at nature, and you will see that joy is the law of motion. The sun shines without reason. Flowers bloom without an audience. Rivers flow without promise of reward. They do so because it is their nature to live. Humans are the same. When they live from their natural state of joy and gratitude, they synchronize with the creative rhythm of the universe. Then every small action yields great results. When joy leaves the heart, people work harder, yet achieve less. They forget that it is not action that creates miracles, but the state within. The same action, done with joy, becomes the seed of prosperity. Done in fear, it only breeds exhaustion. So if you wish to change your outcome, begin by changing the frequency of your emotion. A smile softens not only your face, but your entire life. A gentle breath filled with joy can dissolve the fog of the mind. When you are joyful, your thoughts become clearer, your intuition sharper, and you begin to notice opportunities that were once invisible. The joyful are those who have opened the door for the intelligence of the universe to enter. They do not force, they do not compete, they do not control, for they know the flow will always carry them to the right place. Murphy once said that the truly rich person is the one whose heart remains joyful, even with a single coin in their pocket, because joy is the signal that the current of life is active. The truly poor are those who have material abundance but have lost their joy, for when joy disappears, energy begins to drain away. Emotion is the currency of the soul. When you spend it through joy, you are investing in life. When you hoard it through fear, you dry yourself out. Learn to live with the ease of a river, where each bend carries a new sound, where the water never regrets what has passed nor fears what is to come. The river does not plan its happiness. It knows that in flowing it is alive. So are you. When your heart knows how to laugh, when you find joy in your breath, your step, your gaze, you are living in the state of circulation. And in that state, everything you need comes naturally. For the universe can only flow through those who are open to receive, and there is no door wider than a heart filled with joy. Inhale, exhale, that is the rhythm of life. Everything in the universe moves by the same principle, giving and receiving, in and out, taking and returning. When a person holds their breath too long, they suffocate, and when a mind clings too tightly, it dies slowly in fear. Prosperity is not accumulation, it is conscious circulation. Just as the lungs cannot only inhale without exhaling, humans cannot only receive without giving. All life is sustained by the rhythm of giving and receiving, and when one is blocked, energy begins to fall into disorder. Joseph Murphy called this the law of spiritual breathing, where giving is not losing, but the act of keeping the flow of the universe alive within you. When you give, you create space to receive, and that space is the invitation for new energy to enter. Those who fear giving live in the shadow of lack, and that very thought becomes the wall that keeps them from abundance. The universe cannot fill a cup that is already full. Sometimes, to have more, you must allow some to flow away. Many work tirelessly, holding tightly to what they have, but the tighter they hold, the more they feel it slipping away, because they have forgotten that energy cannot be owned, only circulated. Whatever is held in fear turns stagnant, but when you give with trust, that energy returns multiplied, for you have acted in harmony with the law of the universe. There was once a merchant who came to Murphy, complaining that although he earned much, his money was never enough. Murphy told him, "Start sharing a small part, not out of morality, but for balance. Give as naturally as breathing." At first the man was afraid, but he tried, quietly helping others, offering small support for good causes. Soon he found his work smoother, his clients increasing, and his mind at peace. He realized he had lost nothing, only widened his channel of energy. Just as the heart beats outward to send blood through the body and inward to receive it again, life follows the same rhythm. When you give, you beat outward. When you receive, you beat inward. A heart that refuses to move will cease to live, and a soul that refuses to share will wither. Each time you pay, help someone, or share your knowledge, you are cleansing the current of energy that flows through you. Giving does not make you poor. It purifies your vibration. When you fear, your energy thickens and slows, and all good opportunities seem to avoid you. But when you give in faith, your energy expands, brightens, and naturally attracts its kind. Those who understand this law do not ask, "Will I get something back?" For they know that giving itself is the reward. Everything you give, whether material or spiritual, carries your energetic imprint. If you give with reluctance, it returns with that same hesitation. If you give with love and trust, it returns with multiplied grace. Giving is not sacrifice, it is the affirmation that you believe in the abundance of the universe. And the universe always answers those who dare to trust in its fullness. Look at nature. The tree does not keep its seeds out of fear. It lets them fall, and from them forests are born. The sea does not regret sending water to the clouds, for it knows the clouds will return as rain. Life functions perfectly because it understands circulation. Only humans, in their fear, try to hold what was meant to be released. When you withhold love, you lose the feeling of being loved. When you hoard knowledge, you impoverish yourself. When you clutch money in fear, you cut off the pulse of abundance. But when you give, not from duty, but from the knowing that giving is the breath of life, you become the river instead of the stagnant pool. And the river never fears running dry, for it is forever connected to its source. Murphy once said that those who do not know how to give live in spiritual suffocation. They breathe short, think small, and dwell within the narrow confines of fear. But those who give breathe long and deep, living in an expanded state where everything has space and all good things find their way in. Let giving become the soul's habit, as natural as breathing. It need not be grand, only genuine. A kind word, a good thought, a shared smile, all are currents flowing outward. And when energy moves out, a new stream flows in. The universe despises emptiness. It always fills what has been opened. If you wish to receive, begin by giving. If you want your flow to strengthen, let it move through others. When you help someone, you are helping yourself. For in the spiritual structure of the universe, there is no separation. Giving is the act of acknowledging that you and the world are one. And when that boundary dissolves, there is no one left in lack. True wealth does not come from accumulation, but from alignment with the current of life. The giver is the one who moves with that flow. Every coin given in gratitude is a seed of prosperity. Every act rooted in faith is a new breath of the soul. Life owes nothing, yet it always responds to frequency. When you give in joy, you are breathing with the universe, and the universe will never let you run out of air. to give, to receive, to breathe in, to breathe out. That is the eternal song of life. And when you live in that rhythm, there is nothing left to fear, for everything has already found its place, always flowing, always full, always returning. In medicine, when the body weakens, blood transfusions are used to restore vitality. In the realm of the spirit, it is the same. When consciousness becomes impoverished and fearful, it needs a transfusion of new energy to renew the entire inner flow. Joseph Murphy called this the transfusion of the spirit, or the replacement of mental blood. For just like blood, thought carries energy throughout the body, nourishing or destroying depending on its nature. If the blood is poisoned, the body weakens. If thought is poisoned with fear, resentment, or doubt, the soul too falls into depletion. Life then begins to mirror the illness of the mind. Everything grows heavy, fortune fades, and poverty begins not in the wallet, but in the thought. To recover, you cannot mend the purse. You must transfuse the mind with new, pure, and vital blood. Every thought of abundance is a new drop of blood. Every clear belief, a flow of spiritual oxygen feeding your inner being. When you change the way you think, you are performing an invisible surgery on your soul. All true transformation begins within. The outer world is merely its reflection. One who constantly believes they are unlucky will see misfortune everywhere. One who knows their worth will naturally be treated as such. The world does not judge, it only reflects. Its reflection is so honest that people often mistake it for punishment. Yet they are only living within the mirror they themselves created. To change the mirror, you must change the gaze. To change your life, you must change your thoughts. The spiritual transfusion begins with cleansing the old thoughts that have become toxic. Phrases like, I am not enough, I cannot, I do not deserve, are clots that block the flow of prosperity. You cannot receive new energy while your mind is still filled with negative affirmations. Just as a patient cannot heal while injecting poison, you must stop, cleanse, and allow yourself to be reborn in the new blood of faith and abundance. A man once came to Murphy, exhausted in both spirit and fortune. Everything he touched failed. Murphy asked him, what do you think about before sleep each night? The man said he always thought of his debts and feared tomorrow would be worse than today. Murphy smiled and said, that is the prayer you have been offering to your subconscious. The subconscious does not distinguish fear from faith. It only obeys the message repeated with the strongest emotion. If each night you fear, you are commanding the mind to create more reasons to fear. But if you plant positive images instead, the subconscious will obey like a loyal servant. Murphy gave him a simple exercise called the spiritual blood transfusion. Each night before sleep, he was to imagine a golden light entering his head, flowing through his heart, and spreading through his body. He was to imagine that light carrying the energy of prosperity, strength, and peace. As he visualized, he would gently affirm, I am receiving the pure blood of faith. I am healthy, wealthy, and filled with life. He practiced this every night for 3 weeks. At first, he felt it was pretend, but then something real began to stir. His body felt lighter, his sleep deeper, his thoughts calmer. A month later, a new business opportunity arrived, and good things began to follow. He did not call it a miracle, but the result of changing the blood of his mind. When the mind is cleansed, it begins to attract experiences equal to its purity. Anyone can perform this spiritual transfusion. Choose a quiet moment each day. Close your eyes and feel your heartbeat. Imagine your heart as a golden center, pumping fresh, luminous blood through your body. Each beat sends out faith, clarity, and fullness. You do not need to force belief. Simply repeat softly so the subconscious can hear. For the subconscious does not learn by logic, it learns by emotion and image. When the image becomes vivid, it turns into reality. Those whose hearts have been wounded need this new blood most. They do not need to forget the past, they need to cleanse it in the light of understanding. Forgiveness is not ignoring, it is stopping the feeding of poisonous memories. Each time you forgive, you renew the blood of your soul. Each time you give thanks, you oxygenate your faith. Each time you imagine something good, You inject your subconscious with healing. The spiritual transfusion is not a mystical ritual, but the science of consciousness. It follows the law of energy. Where attention goes, energy grows. If you focus on lack, you feed scarcity. If you focus on abundance, your energy expands to receive more. When you change the current of your thoughts, you change not only your emotions, but your entire energetic field. And then the world responds in kind. The wealthy are not so because they have much, but because they carry the blood of belief. The healthy are not only strong in body, but filled with the blood of peace. When your mind is alive with faith and inspiration, that energy radiates outward, and life begins to move with you. See each morning as a new transfusion. When you open your eyes, do not rush to recall the burdens of yesterday. Imagine sunlight passing through you, renewing every cell, every thought. Say quietly, today I receive the pure blood of life. I am filled with strength and prosperity. Believe it is happening, for every thought you plant becomes a living cell in your spiritual body. When you change the blood of your mind, you change the fate of your life. And one day, you will realize that life never worked against you. It was only waiting for you to change the flow within so it could return to you everything that has always been yours. There comes a moment in every life when one realizes that all the answers were never outside. We search in other people, in success, in possessions, in things that seem grand. Yet the more we search, the deeper the emptiness grows within. True peace does not come from attaining, but from remembering. For what you seek has always been there, waiting for your return. This is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. It is not merely sound, but the heartbeat of the soul recognizing its true nature. Every person carries within two currents, one flowing outward, one flowing inward. The outward current is action, effort, and seeking, while the inward current is awareness, stillness, and trust. When these two merge, you no longer live divided between wanting and fearing, between striving and surrendering. You enter the natural state of flow, where everything unfolds at the right time in the right way, not faster, not slower, but perfectly within its own order. Joseph Murphy once said that the human mind is the doorway between the visible and the invisible. When it opens, the creative energy of the universe flows through you like light through clear glass. But when it is clouded by fear, anger, or doubt, that light is scattered and dimmed, and the world reflects the shadow of your own vibration. Life does not punish, it reflects. Everything you see is a response to the energy you send out. When you fear, you send the vibration of lack. When you give thanks, you send the vibration of abundance. When you are at peace, you radiate the energy of creation, and the universe can only respond truthfully to that frequency. The world is a mirror, and the mirror cannot reflect differently if the expression within it remains the same. People often try to change the mirror by touching the glass, but all true change begins when you shift the expression within. Every problem traced back far enough begins in the mind. No external force is stronger than your inner energy. When you change your thoughts, your surroundings naturally realign, like ripples adjusting to a new wind across the water. Therefore, to change reality, do not resist it. Change the energy you are sending out. A woman once came to Murphy and said she had prayed for years to be free from suffering, but had never been answered. Murphy asked her, "Do you pray with faith or with fear?" She was silent, then realized that every prayer she uttered was filled with anxiety. She was not believing in goodness. She was afraid of more pain. Murphy said, "That is not prayer, that is an affirmation of fear. And when fear is repeated, it becomes reality." He told her something simple. Prayer is not asking, it is remembering. When you pray, you are not seeking something new. You are reconnecting with what has always been. When your mind aligns with faith, prayer is no longer words, but a state of certainty. From that moment, she changed her way of being. Instead of pleading, she began to give thanks for what had not yet arrived. And in a short time, her life transformed completely. Not by miracle, but because her energy had changed. When you give thanks, you tell the universe, "I am ready to receive." When you fear, you say, "I am not ready." Life listens closely to the frequency you emit. Peace is the highest of them all. When you rest in peace, everything you need begins to find you, not because you demand it, but because you become the natural magnet for what matches your vibration. Peace is the foundation of creation, just as still water is the condition for reflecting the sky. When your mind is calm, the universe can reflect its light fully through you. When your mind stirs, the light breaks apart. All you need to do is be still and let your energy adjust itself. You cannot find light by chasing it. You can only see it when you stop disturbing the darkness. The world will not change because you force it to, but because you begin to understand it. Understanding is the key to harmony, and harmony is the highest form of power. Those who understand the laws of life do not fight against them. They move with them, they flow within them, and thus they are never exhausted. They know that everything unfolds in order, and they trust that order. When you trust the flow, you enter what Murphy called the silent intelligence, the state where decisions arise from intuition, not fear. In that state, you act less but achieve more, for you are no longer resisting the energy that sustains you. And then you realize all the goodness you ever prayed for was never something to find, but something to allow. Life has never been distant from you. It was only waiting for you to return to its rhythm. When you hear the silence within yourself, you will recognize that the voice has never left. It has always been there, like a small flame in the darkness, waiting for you to stop searching outside so you can see the light within. This is the power of voice within. Not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, where fear dissolves, where questions are answered through stillness, and where you remember that you have always been complete. There are moments so small yet powerful enough to change the entire direction of a life. Not grand events, but quiet pauses. The instant you stop amid your thoughts, listen to a single breath, and realize you no longer need to run. Life was never a race. It is a symphony, and each soul is born to play its part in harmony. When you understand this, you no longer strive to be faster than anyone else. You simply wish to play in tune with yourself. Joseph Murphy once said, "The one who loses connection with their inner flow has forgotten the melody of life. They live among the noise of the world, yet feel hollow inside. Everything they do appears right, but lacks soul. And that emptiness is the true source of modern exhaustion. We act endlessly but forget why we began. We try to control everything, forgetting that what is truly precious can only be felt, never possessed. The tighter you hold, the more you lose. Just as water slips through clenched fingers but rests peacefully in an open hand, life, too, flows most gently when you stop trying to contain it. It does not want your control, only your permission. When you let go, you lose nothing. You simply allow the current to return to its natural rhythm. The outer world is always the echo of your inner energy. When you live in fear, you draw in what feeds that fear. When you live in trust, life softens around you. Everything in the universe responds to the frequency you emit, and the highest, most natural frequency of all is stillness and faith. When your heart is calm, wisdom begins to speak. When your mind is loud, wisdom falls silent. Perhaps you have felt this that moment when you stop trying to think, and suddenly the answer arrives. That is not coincidence. That is the moment when your mind becomes quiet enough to hear the deeper voice, the voice of the flow. Murphy called it the intelligence of the subconscious. In the East, it is known as the wisdom of non-self. It does not arise from logic, but from total harmony between you and the universe. When you live in that harmony, decisions become effortless. You know when to act and when to pause, like a musician knowing when to play and when to rest. Every action born from stillness carries the strength of the universe. It is no longer your effort alone, but a collaboration with the energy of life itself. Life does not need you to be stronger. It needs you to be aligned. True power is not in force, but in harmony. A bird flies not because it beats its wings harder, but because it moves with the wind. Humans are the same. When you move with your own energy, everything becomes simple. But to do that, you must first be quiet enough to hear the wind. All worries, desires, and comparisons are just noise pulling you away from direction. Stillness does not mean escaping the world. It is the ability to remain centered while standing within it. In that state, even when chaos surrounds you, you still feel the rhythm of life pulsing through. Then you begin to see that what you once called loss is merely energy rearranging itself to make space for what fits better. Nothing leaves you without giving a lesson. Nothing arrives without meaning. When you understand this, you stop asking why and begin asking what for. That shift opens the door to wisdom. When you see life as a student instead of a victim, suffering fades. Because in the eyes of the learner, everything has value. Even difficulty teaches patience. Even loss teaches release. Life is not a string of random events, but a perfectly composed symphony, where every note, high or low, belongs to the wholeness of the song. When you start to hear that, you stop fearing the lower notes. You begin to hear the beauty of the whole. Serenity does not come from a life without problems, but from seeing meaning in each one. When your heart opens, the world opens. When you believe that life is a friend, not a fight, your energy changes, and when your energy changes, everything changes. You no longer need to know the future. You only need to know that you are in the right place at the right time within the right flow. From there, fear disappears, for nothing is truly against you. This is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, where every effort becomes gentle, where every answer feels close, and where you remember that peace never left you. It was only waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear it. Look at the river. It never asks where it must go, nor does it try to hold on to anything. It simply flows, not out of fear, not out of desire, but because that is its nature. The river has no goal, yet it always reaches the sea. Humans are different. We run ourselves weary chasing what could have come to us the moment we opened our hearts. When your mind becomes as still as the surface of calm water, you begin to see that everything you have ever sought is already there, only hidden beneath the noise of worry. Joseph Murphy once said, "When you trust the flow of life, you enter what he called the sacred rhythm, a state where everything unfolds perfectly without force. You stop asking when, and quietly say, 'I am ready.' And when you are ready, life opens before you like a door that was never locked." The problem of the modern soul is that we believe we control life, while in truth, life is teaching us how to live. Every delay, every detour, every unexpected turn is the universe's way of guiding us back into alignment with our flow. Sometimes you feel slowed down, but perhaps that is life asking you to look closer, feel deeper, and loosen your grip. Every fear is born the moment you forget that you are part of this current, like a drop of water forgetting it belongs to the ocean, believing itself lost. Yet the drop never leaves the sea. It only rises for a while to learn the art of returning in another form. Have you ever felt yourself swimming against the current, exhausted from trying to hold on to what was meant to leave? Have you ever wondered what would happen if, instead of resisting, you allowed the river of life to lead you? Think of how many times you have stood before a closed door, pushing and pleading, while behind you another quietly opened. Life never takes without preparing to give. You simply have not turned around to see the new door waiting. When you trust the flow, you stop fearing loss, because you understand that nothing is ever truly lost. It only transforms. Like the blood that leaves one part of the body to nourish another, life exists because of circulation, not possession. The more tightly you hold, the more you block the current. The more you allow, the more alive you become. That is the secret of peaceful hearts. They do not have everything, yet they feel complete. Not because they possess, but because they understand that everything comes and goes in divine timing. Perhaps as you listen now, you feel something stir within your heart, a quiet question or a gentle resonance. Let me ask you this. Can you believe that life has never been against you, that everything happening is leading you closer to yourself? Pause for a moment and listen to your heartbeat. Each pulse is a reminder that you are here, still alive, still part of the eternal river of life. Life does not want perfection from you. It only wants presence. Because when you are present, you can sense the subtle voice of the universe, the one that speaks not in words, but in the quiet feeling of peace. That is the voice within we are all searching for. The power of voice within is not only sound, but a space of return. Every time you sit in stillness, without praying, without forcing belief, simply breathing and allowing, you are returning to that center. Thank you for being here, for listening not only with your ears, but with your heart. This listening itself is a miracle proof that you are still connected, still sensitive to life. And that is all you need to begin again. Life does not demand answers, it only hopes you ask the right questions. So let me ask you once more. If tomorrow you no longer needed to prove anything, if you no longer had to run anywhere, how would you choose to live? What would you still fear, knowing that the flow of life will always carry you to the right place, at the right time, to meet the right people? Let that question stay within you without rushing to answer. Just feel it, because sometimes answers do not come as words. They come as the quiet peace that arises when you stop searching. Thank you for being here, for listening, for allowing your inner voice to be heard once again. There is an unchanging law in the universe that most people forget, the law of exchange and circulation. Nothing in nature stands still. The wind moves, the sea shifts, blood flows, and the heart beats without pause. This movement is what sustains life. When any part stops moving, stagnation begins, energy weakens, and life fades away. Money, as Joseph Murphy once said, is the blood of material existence. It is not something to fear or to worship, but a current that must stay in motion. When you hold it with fear, you choke its flow. When you let it move with gratitude, you open the path for it to return. Life mirrors your attitude. If you fear loss, you tell the universe you are lacking. If you give thanks, you tell it you are already full. And the universe responds to your frequency precisely, without error. The material world does not operate by effort, but by energy. A person may do less yet attract more if their mind is at peace, while another works endlessly and gains little because they are bound by fear. Fear does not create flow, it creates resistance. Fear builds walls, faith opens doors. When you open the door, life walks in. When you build the wall, you isolate yourself from what was already on its way to you. Look at the blood within your body. It does not choose which cell deserves more. It flows equally to all. Life does not discriminate. Money, opportunity, and love behave the same. They only need an open channel through which to move. If you label money as evil, you restrict the flow. If you resent those who are wealthy, you reject the very energy you are asking for. Many pray for prosperity, yet deep down they believe that to be prosperous is sinful. They say they want wealth, but fear being judged for having it. So their subconscious receives two opposite commands, to move and to stop, and as a result, nothing changes. Murphy called this the paradox of belief. You cannot receive what you fear, you cannot attract what you judge. The mind does not understand the language of words, it understands energy. You may say, I want abundance, but if your heart vibrates with fear, the subconscious only hears the fear, and that is what it will reflect outward. Thus, the journey to prosperity begins not with earning, but with purification. When you cleanse your beliefs, you reopen the flow of energy. Imagine a river blocked by stones. The water cannot move. Those stones are fear, guilt, and judgment about money and abundance. When you forgive yourself, others, and your past experiences of lack, those stones begin to dissolve. The river flows again, and life returns. The same happens within you. When your mind stops resisting, it becomes transparent like glass, allowing the light of life to pass through unbroken. Then everything comes to you not through effort, but through alignment. Alignment is the language of the universe. It requires no logic, only trust. When you trust, you begin to witness coincidences, doors opening at the right time, opportunities appearing where none seem possible. These are not miracles. They are the natural rhythm of a universe, unhindered by your resistance. A person may toil for decades, but if their mind is closed, they see no results. Another may move slowly but with faith, and every step is guided. You do not need to chase prosperity, you only need to make room for it. The world is not lacking in resources, only in minds willing to receive. Prosperity does not choose people, it chooses frequencies. You may see two people doing the same work. One constantly struggles while the other thrives. The difference is not luck, but vibration. One acts from gratitude and trust. The other acts from fear and doubt. The actions may look identical, but the energy makes all the difference. Money is simply a mirror, reflecting your sense of self-worth. When you see yourself as worthy, wealth appears naturally. When you see yourself as small, it quietly slips away. You cannot overcome the limits of your belief through action, only through awareness. Awareness begins when you pause long enough to observe yourself. Ask sincerely, do you truly believe you deserve prosperity, or are you still trying to prove your worth through exhaustion? If your efforts are driven by fear of lack, you are swimming against the current. If they arise from faith in abundance, you are flowing with it. Those who understand this law never fear loss. They know that when money leaves, it clears the way to return in another form. They do not hoard, they circulate. And that is the secret of peaceful abundance. It is not about having more, but about living in the flow of enough. When you reach this state, you no longer count money. You feel the energy of prosperity moving in every breath. At that point, money is no longer a goal, but a reflection of inner balance. And when the inside is full, the outside naturally follows. True wealth is not the result of effort, but a state of awareness. When your mind moves in harmony with the rhythm of the universe, everything you need arrives naturally, like breath, like the beating of your heart. But when you try to force, when you believe you must compete or conquer, you begin to block the very energy that longs to flow through you. Life does not demand that you be stronger, it only asks that you trust, because trust is the highest form of action. Faith is not sitting still and waiting. It is walking forward with the quiet knowing that the path already exists. Murphy once said, when you act in faith, you no longer ask whether it will succeed, because faith itself is the success. Faith is not hope, it is knowing. The one who hopes still doubts, but the one who believes already knows. And that knowing, even before seeing, begins to alter the fabric of reality. The mind is the invisible artist painting every detail of your life. If it paints with fear, your world appears in shades of gray. If it paints with trust, the world opens in light. Every thought is a brushstroke, every emotion a hue. You cannot create abundance while carrying the image of lack. A farmer cannot harvest golden fields if his seeds are made of fear. So the first step is not to do, but to envision. Imagine within you a river of golden blood flowing through every vein, carrying life, wholeness, and peace. That current never runs dry, because its source is infinite. When you truly feel this, worry begins to fade. Money, work, relationships, they are all forms of the same energy, and energy can never be lost, only transformed to reflect your belief. When you believe that life supports you, you start to see evidence everywhere: smile, an open door, an unexpected opportunity. When you believe the world resists you, it mirrors that resistance back. The universe holds no bias. It is a mirror of consciousness, and you are the only one who can change the reflection by changing the gaze. There is a subtle truth. Few understand the flow of life. Never asks you to understand everything. It only asks you to trust and to release. When you try to understand all things, you live by intellect. When you allow, you live by wisdom. The mind keeps asking why. Wisdom quietly says enough. In stillness, you can hear that voice, not as sound, but as a calm recognition that you are in the right place, at the right time, vibrating at the right frequency. When you live in that flow, your actions become effortless, your words carry presence, and your being radiates peace, because then you are no longer striving to create outcomes, you are the outcome. People often ask how to achieve prosperity, but prosperity is not something to achieve, it is something to allow. You do not need to seek the light when you are the lamp. You do not need to call for peace when you are the breath. You do not need to chase happiness when you are its expression. When you understand this, fear dissolves because you see that nothing is missing in a perfect universe. Lack exists only in a divided mind, not in the reality of truth. Look at a seed, it never asks when to bloom. It simply surrenders to the soil, trusts the timing, and blossoms when the moment is right. Humans are no different. There is no need to rush. Just trust that the process is unfolding in the best possible way. Everything you need will come. Not early, not late, but precisely when you are ready. And readiness is not about having everything prepared. It is the realization that you already are enough. Life does not ask for perfection, only presence. For in presence, you open the doorway for the universe to move through you. When that happens, everything natural begins to arise. Opportunities appear, love blooms, and peace returns. This is not a miracle, but the natural state of being when you stop resisting yourself. This is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, where you no longer need answers, because you realize that silence is the answer, where you stop asking for the path, because you have become the path. And in that moment, you understand that wealth, love, joy, and peace were never out of reach. They were always here in every breath, in every instant you choose to live fully and trust the flow of life that is carrying you. Every river has a beginning, but no true end. It merges with the sea, becomes something greater than itself, rises again into vapor, and returns as rain beginning once more. Life moves in the same rhythm. It never stops. It only transforms, only circulates. When you understand this, you stop fearing loss, because nothing is ever truly lost. Everything is simply shifting form, and in that process, your soul expands. Life does not take from you, it only changes shape to show you deeper truth. Joseph Murphy said that all energy returns to its source, and you are part of that source. When you understand that you are a channel, not a possessor, you begin to live in true freedom. Possession always carries fear, but circulation carries peace. Those who cling suffer when they lose, while those who let energy flow smile when they give, for they know the current always returns, sometimes in a different form, but always with the same essence. This is the law that sustains existence, the law of exchange and flow. When you give, you create the path to receive. When you hold, you block your own abundance. Look at nature. Trees do not hoard sunlight. They absorb it and return it as oxygen. The sea does not cling to its water. It releases it to the sky so that it may return as rain. Everything in nature knows that to hold is to die and to flow is to live. Humanity alone tries to break this law out of fear of loss. We seek control, accumulation, guarantees, and in doing so we forget that safety is not in holding on but in trusting. When you trust that the current of life always carries you to the right place, you stop fearing and begin to move with grace. Water does not fight, yet it overcomes everything, because it knows how to go through, around, and with. You do not need hardness to be strong. You need fluidity to be free. Every act of release expands you. Letting go is not giving up, it is acceptance. Acceptance that every cycle has its purpose, and each one holds perfection. Without autumn, there can be no spring. Without night, light cannot be cherished. Without loss, gratitude cannot be learned. True prosperity begins when you see every form of movement through the lens of gratitude. When money leaves your hands, see it not as loss, but as a seed returning to the earth to multiply. When you help someone, understand that you are creating a circle of energy in which both are lifted. Life never leaves you empty when you remain willing to give. Every energy you release returns to you always. Sometimes it comes swiftly, sometimes it ripens in its own time, but it always returns. When you trust this, you begin to live lightly. You no longer grip to feel secure, because you realize safety is not external. It is an inner harmony with the laws of the universe. When you learn to live like a river, storms no longer frighten you, for you know that water never disappears. It only changes form. The same is true for you. Every change in your life is not to destroy you, but to remind you of your natural flexibility. When something leaves, it does not take value away. It makes space for what is next. The death of one season is always the birth of another. And when you see life this way, you stop fearing endings. You see only beginnings in new forms. Those who live in fear always shrink inward, but those who live in faith expand. This faith is not blindness, it is a deep recognition that the universe never errs. Even what hurts today is part of a lesson designed to make you whole. When you see this, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" In that moment, you step out of the role of victim and become a co-creator with life itself. Every soul is born to circulate, to love, to give, and to receive. When you no longer fear love, when you no longer fear loss, you enter true freedom. You no longer need external proof of worth, for you realize you have always been enough. This fullness does not depend on possessions, but on the inner knowing that you are part of an eternal current. When you live in that awareness, life begins to respond with miracles. Doors open without knocking, opportunities appear without searching, because you have become the channel for life itself, not the seeker of it. At that point, prosperity ceases to be a goal and becomes a natural consequence. Your life becomes a living testament to a simple truth, that nothing is ever truly lost in a universe that is always flowing. Only those who forget how to trust feel lack, but for those who remember the rhythm of life, every moment is abundance. There is a river that flows through everything. It has no beginning and no end. It transforms, expands, and becomes part of all life. This river does not exist only in the earth or between the mountains. It flows within every human being, within every thought, every breath, every feeling you hold. When you feel empty, when life feels heavy, it is not because the river has disappeared, but because you have stopped listening to it. In silence, that river begins to whisper again, reminding you that you were never separated from the source. Joseph Murphy called this the flow of the infinite, the eternal circulation of energy. He said the universe never stops giving, and when a person learns to move in harmony with that rhythm, they become a channel for abundance, no longer a seeker of it. Every form of lack begins the moment you forget that you are part of an infinite supply. When the mind disconnects from faith, energy stops flowing, and life mirrors that stillness through struggle, stagnation, and scarcity. But the moment you remember, the moment you believe that the current is still waiting for you to open your heart, everything begins to shift. Faith does not come from outside. It arises from the awareness that you are the expression of creation itself. You are not the one begging for light. You are the place through which light moves. When you realize this, you stop praying with words and start praying with presence. Every breath you take becomes a declaration of life. Every heartbeat becomes the voice of the infinite calling you home. Life never truly leaves you. It only reflects the beliefs you hold. If you believe you are separate, you will see division. If you believe you are connected, you will see unity everywhere. Like the river, water is never lost. It only changes form, sometimes as rain, sometimes as mist. Yet it remains water. So do you. No matter what form your life takes, your energy still belongs to the infinite flow. When you are grateful, you open yourself to that river. When you are afraid, you build a wall between yourself and the source. The world does not block you. Only your own mind has that power. And when you realize you are the only one who can remove the barrier, freedom begins. Freedom is not having everything, but no longer fearing loss. When you stop fearing loss, you become light, and in that lightness, you attract more than ever before. The universe trusts the hearts that no longer live in fear. We often believe safety comes from control, but in truth, safety is born from trust. Life moves in the rhythm of balance. When you give, you create space to receive. When you are grateful, you open the door for something new to enter. Everything in the universe operates in circles. There is no true beginning or end, only continuous circulation. Look at your own body. Blood does not stop in one place. It flows, renews, and sustains. If it stopped, life would stop. Your existence works the same way. You feel stuck only when you stop circulating your energy, when you stop believing, stop loving, stop being grateful. Life does not come from outside. It flows from how you connect with what is within. When you live in gratitude, you return to the original heartbeat of the universe. Gratitude is the blood of the soul, the breath of abundance. Every thank you is a pulse that opens the channel for new energy to flow in. When you feel truly grateful, You no longer need to ask for anything because you realize you already live in fullness. From that awareness, you begin to see beauty in the ordinary, and the extraordinary begins to unfold. Prosperity is not a result, it is the natural expression of a mind aligned with life. Once you sense that current, you no longer try to swim, you let it carry you. And in that motion, you are guided to where you belong. There is no more chance, no more doubt, only the wholeness of now. You no longer ask when life will change, because the moment you shift your frequency, life has already changed. Every miracle happens in the moment you stop and recognize that you are alive. You already have everything. You do not need to run into the future to find peace, because peace has never left you. It waits for you to become still enough to notice that all the noise, all the worry, all the fear are only ripples on the surface, while beneath it, the river remains calm, clear, and alive. When you touch that stillness, you no longer need answers, because you have become the answer. All searching ends here in the moment you remember that you are part of the eternal flow. This is the power of voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to, where there is no beginning or end, only return, where there is no lack or longing, only presence. And in that presence you realize you were never alone, never lost, because the river of the infinite still flows within you endlessly, ceaselessly, as life itself whispers softly, I am still here, with you,